Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to the Citrine Path. Today, again, we have myself, Amber, and my amazing co-host.
And I'm Patsy from Violet Elements. Before we get started here, we just want to share real quick that this is our journeys and our guest journey on their spiritual life and their herbal life. So, everything we talk about here, we do recommend you do your own research and definitely talk to your provider before you start any herbal remedies or home remedies.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Citrine Path. So today we're going to have a little bit of a different topic. We're going to be talking about Yule and how some traditions came to Christmas. So, what are you going to be talking about today, Mom?
Well, like I said, I want to be able to share like other people's things.
Mm-hmm.
So, a friend just recently gave me this. So it's a bayberry candle. And apparently this is a tradition that her and her husband do. And they give these out for like Christmas or Yule presents.
That's
And
neat.
she wrote me a little like card. So it says the bayberry candle burns to the socket, bringing health to the home and wealth to the pocket.
Huh.
So, yeah. So,
that-
I'm
That's
gonna light this tonight and try that. I don't know. It's always fun to try new things.
no, I love that. That's a cool idea, and especially to give it for presents. I think that's really neat.
Yes.
Super, super neat. And then today I'm going to talk about um, the Amanita Muscaria. It's the red and white toadstool mushroom and how it's come to, we think, bring a lot of the traditions to Christmas. So let me get my little book out here so I don't forget anything. So Amanita muscaras typically grow um, underneath fir trees and conifer trees. And typically, winter solstice is the day that they actually come out and you can go find them. So they're in Asia and East and Europe. Um, there's a shaman who would traditionally walk around and pick the mushrooms during the gloomy and dark time of year and would pass them out to the villages to bring them some sort of whimsy into the darkness that is now going to be the next 4 days. And they think from that ceremony, that's where a lot of Christmas came from.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think I have heard something about that before, and oh my gosh, I can't remember now, but they're talking about how it makes reindeers hallucinate, and that's how they
Mm-hmm.
think they get the idea that reindeers flew.
Yeah. So I think I remember telling you guys a little bit when I first started researching this back in July of 22. And um, they realized that the reindeer were eating the mushrooms. And because of a certain toxin that's in the Amanita muscarias, um, they make you super sick when you eat them.
Mm.
So whenever people would eat them, they would get super sick, but the reindeers would eat them and they would be fine. And they realized the reindeers were acting weird. So then, in a way for them to get the effects of the mushrooms, they used to drink the reindeer's pee.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they think maybe that's one way that the reindeers came into play.
Hmm.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. What I thought was the most interesting is so they used to take the Amanita muscarias and you have to dry them before you can um, prepare them. I'm not sure how they prepared them, but they used to have to hang them to dry. They would hang them on the trees around town. They possibly even brought trees into their home to hang them from. Or another common way they hung them was in socks on the mantle by the fire.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Because I
Hmm.
always wondered about stockings and where those came from. Like, I never understood why we put big socks around the house and stuff, just build them up,
Big
you know?
socks.
I never got it.
That's interesting. I never thought about that. Okay. So I do know one of the reasons why they use holly berries or holly in general to decorate around like your hearth and wreaths and stuff is that the berries are supposed to symbolize the birth blood. So this is kind of like the rebirth of the world because it's going to go into hibernation and technically the world stands still for 3 days
Mm-hmm.
because the time difference from day and night does not move for the next 3 days. And then after 3 days, that's when the days start to get longer, which I always thought was really interesting. I didn't realize that.
That's really cool. I didn't know that either. I thought it was just the red berries is why people decorated with it. I didn't realize there was actually a meaning behind it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like, yeah.
That is interesting. That's super interesting. Okay. Um. Oh, so one thing that blew my mind when I was researching these mushrooms. So, the what do you think of when you think of Santa? Like, what stands out to
Oh, like characteristics?
you? Mm-hmm.
I would have to say like his appearance most, like his red suit, long beard,
Mm-hmm.
and then he flies with little fuzzy reindeer friends.
Right. So, get this. So it says that the shamans, when they would collect these mushrooms, they had a special ceremonial garments that they would wear, right? So their garments was a red coat, red pants, trimmed in white fur, and black boots.
Oh,
Yeah. And they used the red and white to show appreciation for the Amanitas.
interesting.
Yeah. And then as the shamans were collecting the Amanitas, they would put them into a bag to be able to carry them back into town. And then
Interesting.
yeah. So then he had to carry these mushrooms back into town in his bag. And um, their yurts, because they lived in yurts at this time, were completely surrounded with snow. You can't get in through any of the windows, any of the doors. So he had to climb through the smoke hole in the roof to be able to get into the homes to give everybody their mushrooms.
So like coming through a chimney.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Isn't that interesting? And then they had their stockings sitting up on the mantle for him to put the mushrooms in. And another reason why they think they're flying. So um, there's like several theories about this, and nobody can really say 100% yes or no on any of them. So the reindeers, everybody's still stumped about where the reindeer came from. So a couple theories is that when people are partaking in the ceremonies, they feel like they're flying or soaring through the air. So they think that that might be one reason. Another reason is because drinking the reindeer pee, and also the shamans would come into each house on reindeer, and he would show up really quickly and then would turn around and disappear like he soared off into the sky. I think it's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder whose job it was to collect the reindeer pee. I wouldn't want that job.
Oh yeah, me neither. Well, an even crazier one. So how everybody would get sick. The shaman then sometimes eat the mushrooms and then pee into cups and have everybody drink his pee to not get the side effects also.
No, thank you. Mm-mm.
Gross.
Well, it just goes to show you, like on most of this stuff, the hard part is that they didn't really write things down and they weren't very like they didn't take notes. They didn't write it down, you know? So a
Mm,
lot of this stuff is told as stories from family to family to generation. So I wonder, it's always like, have you ever played that telephone game?
oh, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
like, how much of it has really changed and evolved from each generation? Um, like, I wonder if it meant something different, like, 2 generations ago, and they just went with it, you know?
Yeah, and
I don't know.
that's a fair point. And because this also I think happened in Asia and Europe. So even coming across the big pond over there, there could be a lot of things flipped in translation there also.
Yeah, that's very true too. I had came across a story of these people in India, and they have, like, wood pieces that they, like, pierce through their nose right here, and they stretch their nose out on the side,
Hmm.
and that the government banned the ladies from doing it back a while ago, like 60 something years ago.
Hmm.
So all these ladies that are, like, the elders of the tribe are, like, 60 to 80 years old. Most of them don't even know how old they are because it's not something they keep track of.
Wow.
Um, are the last ones that have this, even though they've been doing it, you know, for generations,
Hmm.
because the government stepped in and said, "You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to." Trying to remember how they worded it, but anyway, you can't damage your body and you're mutilating yourself doing this. So all the younger ladies can't do it now, but it's part of their tradition. But
Hmm.
when they were trying to figure out how it started, one of the ladies had said that women kept disappearing and getting kidnapped. And so they started doing the holes in the side of their nose, thinking it would make them look unattractive. And they would be able to tell their tribe apart from other ladies because I am assuming that they looked similar to other tribes in the area.
Hmm.
So that's why they started doing it. And then it became so normal that that's just how they did it for generations. I just thought it was interesting.
That is so interesting. Huh, that's super cool. Gosh, that would hurt so bad. I can't even get my nose pierced, let alone. Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's a really
Yeah,
interesting
and
story.
some of them were what? I'm sorry.
No, I said that's an interesting story.
Some of them were stretched so much that it looked like it was, like, closing off their nose, like, this way.
Huh,
It was yeah,
that's really interesting.
that's some dedication, I tell you.
What did she say your candle is made out of? What is it?
Bayberry.
Bayberry. I've never heard of a
Mhm.
bayberry before.
Yeah, hold on, let me look it up.
Okay, I'll give you another fun fact while we're looking that up about mushrooms.
Okay.
So when mushrooms are eaten, um, some of the side effects you get from consuming them is you get red, rosy, flushed faces, like Santa always. Because Santa always has rosy cheeks and flushed face.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so I found some stuff on bayberries here. So it is a small, like, bush shrub.
Hmm.
It looks like they have a variety of different types, but it looks like it's pretty common pretty much everywhere. It even says that it grows in dunes, pine burns, dried forest, on slopes, bogs, and swamps.
Hmm.
It's deer resistant, so I'm assuming the deer must not like it. And it says that Native Americans used the bayberry as medicine. The root bark was poured into a powder and mixed with water to help cure diarrhea.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So here's another fact about it here. It says American pioneers sniffed it, the powder, to help with nasal congestion. And it also helps with parasites, but it doesn't say like they digested it or anything, so I'm not sure what they did with that. But there's a waxing coating that covers the fruit of several of the species.
You're telling me these guys, because they had their noses stuffy, they snorted dried berry.
Yeah, but that's what
My
it says.
my nose is stuffy. Let's shove some more up there.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
That does,
And
yeah.
it says, like with the wax coating, it says that it's found on several of the species, and most people refer to it as bayberry wax, and that they would collect it and make candles out of it.
Oh, that's neat.
It's actually mentioned in the Robinson family novel, the Switz Family Robinson,
Hmm.
in the family um, story. I don't know if you've seen
Oh no,
that. I'm a bad parent. You seriously haven't watched
I don't think
it?
so.
Uh, it was a book, and I do think they made a movie out of it, if I remember correctly. But it's talked about in that story.
Huh.
Um, Campers were used it to keep bugs from insects biting bugs out of their tents. So I wonder if they did it like a coating on the outside of their tents, maybe.
I wonder how many berries they would have to pick to get enough wax to do that.
I don't know because they're like so the bushes kind of look very similar to um like a rhododendron
Hmm.
kind of or like the big sagebrush. The leaf shape, of course, is different, but it kind of has that same structure to it. And most of the berries on here that I'm seeing, they're like about quarter size, give or
Hmm.
take. Yeah, so you'd probably have to collect quite a bit. Oh, sometimes it's referred to as candleberries, which would make sense if they collected it for to make wax. Hmm.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. See, this is what I love. Like somebody shares something that they do for tradition with you,
Hmm.
and then it turns into a whole thing, and then now we just learned all about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to write all of that down in my little book.
Yeah, definitely. So, what other is there any like tradition stuff that your family does in your household?
Oh my. So our kids are still pretty young. Um, so we haven't really made too many traditions yet. But I think my favorite family tradition is our Christmas jammies. By far.
Christmas jammies? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we have a couple of dancing Christmas lighthouses in town, and I think our new tradition is gonna be going to that every
Very cool.
year. Yeah. Are you
So,
having
have you guys ever done a Yule log or anything like that?
No, we haven't. What about you?
I've decorated a few of them, but we've never had like a fireplace where we could burn a Yule log.
Yeah.
I think this year we might put the same ingredients of a Yule log into a simmer pot on the stove. But of course, we wouldn't run it all night. That's kind of the hard part because um, traditionally you would burn a Yule log for these long nights to help like the the tradition is that it's going to keep you warm, keep out evil, keep out the cold, and so you would put all the elements in it. So most time it's like wood with the holly. Some people make them and put just candles on it, and they'll just burn the candles. Or you could just throw the whole log into like a fire pit or a fireplace and burn it.
Mhm.
Some people think that you burn it for 12 days, and that's where the 12 days of Christmas come from. So again, there's lots of different traditions and theories that come from it. But like you see people that do the cake log desserts
Oh,
a
yes.
lot of time around Christmas time.
Yeah, and, like, the
So
pumpkin swirl.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah. So there is a theory that that evolved from making a Yule log. So it's not necessarily the same establishment, like most people don't live out in the middle of nowhere anymore. They're not little tiny communities. They have their own house. They don't gather as much. So
Mhm.
when they would gather for like Halloween, not Halloween, for Christmas, um, they would make a Yule cake. And so it looks like a log. And then they would share it and partake together in that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, though. And that's cool that they would take the logs and burn 'cause I'm sure that smelled good too.
Yes. Yeah, because most of them add, like, pine needles to them, pine cones, holly, um, different other evergreen trees
Mhm.
usually, but it's the same thing, like, most people would decorate a wreath similar to that you would decorate a Yule log.
That makes a lot of sense. Really neat. And then, like, you said they would burn it because it would make their house smell good, and then it would keep them warm and stuff for the next, you know, 4 or 5 days.
Mhm.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. And you're welcoming back the sun. Long days.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of winter solstice, um, yesterday I was watching the stupid Facebook reels. I get sucked into them all the time. But I seen this this guy on there. I don't remember his name, but he was discussing that in his tribe he's Native American, and um traditionally you're not supposed to talk about people who have passed away. Um
Yes.
yeah, and so they said that winter solstice, the next 4 days, that's the only time in their tribe that they're allowed to talk about their deceased loved ones.
Yeah, because that's kinda what I was touched a little bit on about the world standing still.
Mhm.
'Cause technically the days and nights doesn't get any longer for 3 days.
Mhm.
So, everything's at rest. So, the spirits are at rest. Um, so it's a little bit freer to talk about them because you're not gonna bring them back. You're not gonna
Mhm.
call the spirits to you during those 3 days.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. Okay, we got 4 minutes left.
4 minutes. Countdown.
Mhm. You have any last thoughts or comments you wanted to talk about? No.
I don't know.
I just think this is really cool for us to be able to look at different um cultures and different traditions of other people and kind of come up with our own hypothesis, I guess, of why things are today the way they are.
Yeah, and I had somebody, talk about somebody said something about this being a tradition and someone, smarted off and was like, well, that's not a tradition. Someone just made it up. And so it got me thinking that, well, somebody had to do it first, always.
Mhm.
Like they so whoever started it first made it a tradition. And so sometimes if something doesn't jive with your family or like how the log has evolved.
Mhm.
Like there's always time to start a new tradition with your family. Or take something you did as a kid and turn it into something that you and your kids start as a tradition. Um, so for an example, has nothing to do with holidays, but when I was potty training you guys, I did the potty song and would dance around and, goof off with it.
Mhm.
And I thought it was something just me being silly. But now that you guys have babies that you're potty training, and to hear that you guys do the silly potty dance song, that's a tradition. So it doesn't have to be something that has been practiced for hundreds and thousands of years to be a tradition. Like
Mhm.
you can make your own traditions with your family. Yeah, it might be based on something done previous within your family, but that's what's so magical about it is like now your kids are going to remember that potty song and they're
Mhm.
gonna be teaching their kids, and they could say, "Oh, it's a family tradition." So,
Yes.
I think too people get hung up on starting new traditions because that's not how we did it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the fun part because now, like, we're gonna have a new tradition. We're gonna light our bayberry candle, and so I'm excited about that. And then now that's something that I've shared with you. So now that's gonna be in your forefront of your mind, and you might come across somebody else that you're like, "Oh, have you ever heard of the bayberries?" And you might explain it to them. "Oh, you know what just dawned on me?
What?
It's a bayberry candle, and they use bayberries to make candles." Sorry,
Oh,
that
that's a
just
cool, yeah. That's a cool connection.
Oh, that was funny.
That is
Okay,
funny.
so I'm a little slow. I haven't got through all of my coffee yet.
It's okay.
But, yeah, I think that's a good thing to kinda go with. Especially during this holiday season when so many people practice and celebrate their family and their religious and spiritual beliefs in so many different ways. Keep
Mhm.
open mind. Like, you don't know what their traditions are or if they're making new traditions. And who knows, you might be able to take something from their tradition and make it your own. Like,
Yeah. No, 100%. I completely agree. All right, everybody. We are about out of time. Remember, we do not treat, cure, or diagnose any illness. So if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, please reach out to your provider.
so we are always so honored and blessed that you spent your time with us. And we can't wait to visit with you next time. So please come back and visit us. But until then, go forth with love and intention.